Tell me if this story sounds familiar. I'm a 45-year-old guy. I recently got back into the card collecting hobby a couple years ago. I remember as a kid back in the 80s and 90s going to my local card shop with a handful of dollars from chore allowance or newspaper route or mowing lawns. Excited to rip some packs of baseball cards, hoping to pull a Jose Canseco 1987 tops with the wood border or an 89 Ken Griffey Jr. upper deck rookie card, or really any Michael Jordan would be awesome. I collected for a while, but by the time I got into high school, I stopped because I was using my money for other things like going to the movies, going out to dinner with friends, filling up the gas tank of my parents' minivan that they let me drive. It wasn't until a few years ago, being an adult now, with a job that pays enough to be able to afford some spending on a hobby, that I decided to jump back into card collecting, maybe chasing some of that nostalgia from some of my great childhood memories. Sound familiar? That's my basic story. And over the past 2 years of collecting cards and having tables at shows and talking to a lot of other collectors, I realize that that is a very common theme. For a lot of us, that's as far as it goes. Buying a box here and there, picking up some singles of your favorite players to add to your personal collection. For others, that first box may have been a slippery slope that led you to a place that you never imagined that you could be. And it happened so fast, you don't even understand how you got there. That's also part of my story, and that's what I'm here to talk about today, the dark side of card collecting. If you watch my YouTube channel at all, you've probably seen that I rip an insane amount of boxes. Sometimes it's sealed cases, sometimes it's just a bunch of loose boxes. I was buying and opening whatever I could get my hands on. I knew when products were dropping on all the different apps like Walmart and Target. I knew when the restocker was going to be filling the shelves at my local Walmart because I didn't want to miss out on any of the new releases or the products that are so hard to get your hands on. In my mind, it was okay to spend because I had disposable income and I was going to sell the big hits to help pay for the next purchase. But more times than not, those big hits just went into a sleeve and a top loader and into a box of cards that I'm going to grade someday. And then I just never sold them. They just sat in the box. So then when I went to buy the next case, the money from those imaginary sales wasn't there, and so I was using credit cards to pay for them. But it's okay because I'm going to sell the hits from that case, is what I would tell myself. It wasn't long before I built up a mountain of debt. Even worse, I was keeping it a secret from the people that mattered to me most, my wife and my kids. Because even though I justified it to myself when I was buying, and it felt good when I was ripping, deep down I knew that what I was doing was wrong. But I felt too embarrassed and ashamed to admit to anyone that I had become addicted to sports cards, something a lot of people would view as a very childish thing. But it is a very real problem, and it is destroying a lot of people's lives. Card collecting no longer feels like a hobby. It almost has become the same thing as gambling, like scratch off lottery tickets. You might buy one ticket and you win, and it's a rush. And so what do? You cash that one in and you buy another one. But eventually the house always wins and you always lose. It's the same thing with buying cards. You buy a box or you get into a break and maybe you hit a big card. So you use that to justify buying more. And you're always chasing that next hit. But that only lasts for so long, and it's very easy to get addicted to that dopamine rush. But the big hits are few and far between. The house always wins, and you always end up losing. Before long, if you aren't careful and intentional with how you're collecting, you can spiral out of control, and the end result can be devastating. Now, I'm not here to condemn the card collecting hobby. It's supposed to be fun, and it can be, if done with intentionality and under control. I've met a lot of great people over the past few years just talking about cards and sports and collecting, and making those real connections with people can be a very good thing. One of my favorite things to do at shows was giving away free cards to kids that were there walking around with their dad. And seeing their face light up because they got a shiny card of their favorite player. They didn't care what the card was worth, just that they got a card of the guy they like to watch playing the game on TV. That's what the hobby really should be. Not stress, anxiety, and guilt. Of course, not everyone struggles with this urge, this drive, this need for the next big hit, but many of us do. I'm sure that there are people out there that spend way more than I do, and they're perfectly okay. I'm also sure that there are probably people out there that spend a lot less than I do, and maybe they find themselves in a worse situation. We are all an experiment of one. There's no action or outcome that will have the exact same impact on everyone's life. Here's a few questions you can ask yourself that might be a little eye opening. And there's more questions in the description of the video. Number one, have you ever hidden how much you've spent on purchases? Number two, have you ever sold personal items to fund impulse spending? Number three, are you checking shopping or auction platforms daily or even hourly? Number four, have you promised someone you would stop and you didn't? And number five, do you buy things that you actually don't even want? If you answered yes to any of those questions, I'm here to tell you you are not alone. You may have a problem, maybe you don't, but if you do, you probably already knew that. Maybe you just don't know what to do to start to turn things around. So many of us are going through the same thing, but we all think that we are the only ones struggling. We are ashamed of our actions, and so then we isolate ourselves because of that shame, and we never talk about it to anyone. But that just allows us to continue the destructive pattern. When I first posted my struggles on a Facebook group, I received a lot of support and many people saying that they share a similar story of struggle. One person reached out and invited me to a meeting, which I attended right away because I want to surround myself with as much support as I possibly can in my effort to heal and fix the problems that I caused. Maybe somebody else has a similar experience and their story can help me figure out how to navigate the next few steps of my life. Collectors MD is a fairly new group that's facilitating this meeting. And if you think you might have a problem, I highly encourage you to reach out to them on any of the different social media platforms. Hearing other people's stories and having a safe space to share my story without any judgment is a very healthy step in the process of recovery. Don't try to fix this by yourself because that's probably part of how you got here. I would encourage you to open up and be honest with yourself and anyone else that you may have affected and get started right now on the journey back to the person that you want to be. So thanks everyone for watching. If sharing my story can help even one person, then it's all worth it. I'll see you on the next video.